Welcome, everybody, to the greatest debate show on YouTube right now. A lot of people aren't familiar with this new concept. It's called the Zoomer Debate Show, Zoomer Debate Panel, and we have some really topical issues today we're debating. And if you didn't see the thumbnail, if you're not familiar with what we're talking about, I guess quite simply, we're having the trans dating debate you didn't expect, and I'm honored to be with two wonderful people here. Radical Coder will be debating his viewpoints on the issues we'll be talking about, and the Vital Message will be debating his viewpoints. And thank you, first of all, for both being here. And before we get into any questions, I would just like if anybody can find your channels or where can people. I guess it's the Vital Message and Ryan Radical Coder, but I'll start with you, Caduceus. Where can people find you if they want to see more of you?
Yes. My channel is called The Vital Message. I do interviews, and I also have a dating game show called The Black Pill Bachelorette. It's a lot of fun. I recommend people check me out on my channel called The Vital Message. And I also have an Instagram at TVM Caduceus, and check me out there.
Awesome. And how about you, Ryan? Where can people find your content or look you up?
Yeah, on YouTube and pretty much everywhere, I'm Radical Coder. If you search Radical Coder, you should find my channel. I do a lot of debates right now is most of my content, but I'm hoping to start posting some more like educational content. I tutor like computer science and programming and things like this. So if you're interested in learning some cool stuff, it might be a good thing to check out.
Awesome. And like I said, thank you for being here. And if anybody's watching, go like, subscribe to their channels respectively. And I'm excited to get the show started here. We are having, I guess it's a hot button issue. We're talking about trans issues. And respectfully, I'd like this to be done in a tasteful manner. But so with that in mind, if I feel as though this conversation is derailing, I might have to, step in and mute people. But with that, I look forward to a respectful conversation. And I'd like to, if you guys are both ready, start the debate now with the opening question to Ryan. Oh, we have a clip. I'm being cut off. What is this?
Oh, cool.
Oh, I love that. That was the question, folks. And the question is this: is not being attracted to or not dating trans people transphobic? So with that question, Ryan, I have no problem repeating it. I'll put it up in chat too. If you'd like it. But again, I'll say that one more time. Is not being attracted to or not dating trans people transphobic? And with that, I give you the time.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to open this up by reading a kind of a definition from the APA website about what the term transgender means. I think this paragraph is really enlightening to what we're here to talk about today. So I'm going to read this and I'm going to give a couple of thoughts on the subject after that. So transgender is an umbrella term for people whose gender identity, gender expression, or behavior does not conform to that typically associated with the sex they're assigned at birth. Gender identity being the person's internal sense of being male, female, or something else. Gender expression referring to the way that a person communicates their gender identity to others through their behavior, through clothing, through hairstyles, their voice, body characteristics. Sometimes the shorthand trans is used as a shorthand, as shorthand for transgender. While transgender is generally a good term to use, not everyone whose appearance or behavior is gender nonconforming will identify as a transgender person. The ways that transgender people are talked about in popular culture, academia, and science are constantly changing, particularly as individuals' awareness, knowledge, and openness about transgender people and their experiences grow. So I think this is a good basis for why I think this question is asked a lot in a lot of internet debates. It's is it transphobic to say you won't date trans people, whatever. When I think about this question, and the more that I understand what this term means, it's a very, very broad term. Okay, the first word I used here was transgender is an umbrella term, right? So when we imagine the entire set of people that falls within this category, I don't think it makes sense to say that not that I don't think you could say that you would not be attracted to anyone who falls under this label. I don't know if there's anyone who could honestly make such a statement if they really understand the gravitas of what that umbrella includes. I think it will include people who look like other people who you would date if they did not have that label on them. And I think that a lot to moving a bit ahead. I think also that the way that people engage with, or the way people think about this topic, will influence, or the way people imagine what a transgender person is, will influence how they feel about themselves being attracted to that person. And I think there's a lot of shame that people experience and feel surrounding their attraction to someone who might fall under the category of transgender for various reasons. And I think that shame is unfortunate. I think it makes those people feel bad who are attracted to those people. I think it also makes the people who they're attracted to feel bad. And I think that when people make statements like, I would never date a trans person, when people say, I'm not attracted to trans people, I think this is an unnecessary statement, and one that is fundamentally suggested a misunderstanding of these categories.
Wonderful. And thank you for that, Ryan. And with you, Caduceus, I now open the floor to you for your thoughts.
Yes. I think that statement, when people say they would not date a trans woman or have sex with a trans woman, I think they're more referring to, at least from the male perspective, they're referring to the male to female transition more instead of the you consider non-binary. That's a whole entire other debate about what makes someone a man, what makes someone a woman in terms of gender expression, whether if it's how they define that, which I don't think would be appropriate for this time. But if that's included in there, I see where you're coming from, Ryan. But from my perspective, I don't think attraction is necessarily a choice. And if someone crosses that off, I wouldn't consider that transphobic. I would say generally men would want feminine appearing women that are fertile and also have the female anatomy, typically male to females at least don't meet that criteria in the modern era. But in terms of like the non-binary group, that's a whole other debate on whether that comes from gender norms or whether that is even like whether someone even thinks that's a real idea, like a real condition. Like, of course, that's like a whole other debate.
Awesome. Is that where you'd like to stand, or do you have anything else to add?
I think that's just my stance there. I think it's just like when people are dating in a relationship, there's value being gained from both sides. And I think most cisgendered men would want someone that appears feminine, behavior has variance. So I'm not going to consider that. Fertile, being able to have children with, generally, some people don't want kids. And then also has like female anatomy, like the vagina and like typical like wider hips usually. And
excellent. And Ryan, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, sure.
Was that a transphobic statement? When I was listening to the Vital Message, to me, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think that I don't know if it's useful so much for me to like label. I don't think that like Vital Message or Caduceus is like a transphobe or whatever. I think like for one, I understand why you would say that at least for the conversation that I think we're going to have here, that we can maybe set the non-binary category a bit to the side, but I do think that these people's experiences are relevant and do fall under this umbrella. So when part of the problem when people do say this is that they are making a blanket statement that does include these people. But maybe more importantly, what you were saying about what a straight dude is generally attracted to. I agree with most of the things you said. Like, and I would say the behaviors thing was also a pretty valuable component to that. The things I even agree that for the most part, like the being fertile and having female anatomy are pretty are often like some of the most important things that people would consider. But I think when we talk about like what makes someone like straight or gay, for example, we're usually these are usually like people giving a label for what they're attracted to. Like if a straight person, or a person who says they're straight, they're usually describing that they're attracted to femininity, to varying degrees. A lot of that won't include like reproduction. A lot of that doesn't necessarily include female anatomy, although that's maybe the controversial part about this. Because I think that as I understand it, straight men are the ones who mostly consume like transgender porn, specifically trans women.
Really?
And that's my understanding of the data. And it kind of makes sense if you think about that, because, well, gay men aren't generally attracted to femininity in that way. People who identify as gay aren't usually signaling that they're attracted to women who have penises, right? This isn't usually what they're signaling when they identify this way. And similarly, like women who are attracted to men and masculinity, they're not necessarily attracted to, or they wouldn't be attracted to someone just because they have a penis. If they see someone on the street, they don't know whether that person has a penis or not. At least, I mean, they might be able to tell.
I think that the issue with this is that goes back to the half meme, half serious debate of like, is being with the transgender person gay? Like in the more colloquial meme was like, "Our trap's gay," is what happened a few years ago. But of course, some might see that as derogative, and that's a different debate that I don't think like some would consider it. Like I find the idea of it, like personally to me, I'm not into that. Just straight up off the bat. So like,
and for the record, I'm not particularly either. Just so that's on the table.
And the question more is like, would that make someone transphobic there? And that's I just get us back on track.
Yeah, well, I promise I am trying to get back to that. So like the reason that I would say that transphobia plays into this is because it's the element of shame that I touched on in my intro, where there are a lot of straight men who are attracted to trans women, and they feel great shame about this. They think this makes them gay. They think this makes them homosexual. And what I'm here to tell them mainly, I guess, is that if being gay, if having the label of gay means anything, I don't think, or as far as I can tell, it doesn't mean being attracted to like female presentation. Like it's almost oppositionally so.
With that in mind,
and I promise I'm getting that. So the thing that gives them the shame from this, I would say, is a transphobic idea of what it means to be a woman. And I think there are different types of women. There's cis women and there's trans women. I think both of these people are women. And yeah, so if you find yourself if you find yourself feeling deep shame for being attracted to someone who is a trans woman, because you think you should only be attracted to cis women, I think this is a combination of homophobia and transphobia.
Wow, powerful statements right now, Ryan.
Let's just play with my criteria.
Can I cut to a clip real quick, Caduceus? I got my IT in the background. Apparently, we got a clip we're gonna play, and I'm not sure what it is. I guess we're gonna do a reaction bit here. Go ahead and play the clip, IT.
Would you date a trans person?
No.
Honestly, think about it for a second.
No.
Okay, got your answer?
No. I didn't need a second. Thank you.
Well, if you said no, I'm sorry, but that's pretty discriminatory.
I'm done. Where you going? There's no discrimination in what I said. I wouldn't date a person that has a penis.
I mean, isn't dating discriminatory by nature? And like I set a standard of how I discriminate when I say that what I want in a woman. And like the reality is that male to female transgenders do not meet that criteria for me.
Yeah, and I would agree with you that dating has an element of discrimination almost inherently, and so maybe that person who just said that or in that clip when they said no, that's not discriminatory at all. I think both of us would disagree that it is a discrimination that we might find even socially acceptable in some cases. But to the question that was being asked of them, it was would you not debate a trans person? Or I'm sorry, not debate. Would you not date a trans person? Yeah. Debate bro meant. So would you not date a trans person? I think part of this again goes back to the fact that there are people who fall under that category, who I think who would be identified as transgender, who those people probably would date, probably would find attractive. But also, there's a lot of people who have that same immediacy, have that same same. Yeah, go ahead.
Can we get back to the original thing? If a guy says he wouldn't date a trans person, would that make him transphobic? Like,
I think I stand by that. That's rooted in transphobia.
Like, I want you to like say so the example I gave wasn't transphobic in your eyes, or was it transphobic about what I wanted out of a woman? Would that be considered transphobic, or would that be rooted in transphobia? Or
it could be, and I think more importantly, when you're announcing it to people, especially if you're like going on Twitter and tweeting like, "I will never date a trans person," this stuff like this, I think that comes off as transphobic, and it does make people feel like really shitty just for like existing as a trans person. Because I don't think we need to have. I don't think it's like really like what value is being espoused there. Other than that you are maybe it's reasonable to discriminate on this basis, but you are discriminating against trans people, like explicitly. That is the sentiment, right?
And this is where our next question comes up, because it does involve discriminating or
but does discriminate? Oh yeah, go for it.
We're gonna go to the next question here. When should trans people tell a potential partner they are trans? And with this, I think Vital, do you want to start with this, Ryan? Open the first question.
Yeah, I think this answer is tricky. I would say as soon as possible. Like if someone's getting interested, I think most trans people probably like think this way too. As soon as possible, like on dating apps, they'll have it front and center. Usually, I could tell anyway, but they'll have it in their bio that they'll say trans woman, which is good that they're being transparent. It's good that they're being transparent there on that area. I think as soon as possible, but I don't think that they should have a sign that says that they're trans on them. I think it should come up in the first conversation though. If there's any like sexual chemistry going on.
Yeah, I would say in this for this question, I think we're largely going to agree that I think the sooner the better that you communicate if you're interacting with someone to a degree where you expect there might be a sexual relationship developing there, it's probably a really good idea for various reasons to let them know what your genital situation is. I think I don't think that's super unreasonable. But I also think that for people's like safety, because historically a lot of people have been like killed for this, and there's even like something called the trans panic defense, where people have kind of like had sex with a trans person and then become angry after the fact, which as if they'd been fooled. But frankly, I imagine they probably noticed during the act. It would be hard not to. In most cases, maybe there's some very rare occasions where it's less so. But even if I still don't think that the violent reaction would be anywhere justified, right? But again, for people's own safety, I think it's probably important, and it's also just it seems like a nice thing to do, and it's probably.
I got IT in my ear again, Ryan, and it sounds like you two agree generally on this issue.
Yeah. So could we go back to the other one though? Because I think we were making ground where I was asking him. Like he said that there might be roots of transphobia, and me saying I wouldn't want to date the male to female transgender.
Okay, solve this. Yeah,
and I want to kind of explore that, like
and then I have a clip after Ryan's response, if that's all right.
Yeah, I want to.
Yeah, so when I say that, I'm not necessarily like saying that you as an individual, but I think there are people who say what you're saying, who might have like transphobia as a root of that, and I like. Because I actually feel I think we're on the same page in terms
the point
of
I'm making.
But I think there are people who, again, it goes back to the shame element, where people are really embarrassed to be attracted to women who are not cis women. And I think that we should be pushing to break that stigma, because I think it hurts the trans women who are having their options limited, and the men who are having the cis men who have their options limited by this. And yeah.
Well, I'm going to make the point though that it's not the diagnosing category to say that they're transphobic though. Like you can't, like if I say I wouldn't date a trans woman, that doesn't mean I'm transphobic. That's the point I'm making. Like I could have a reason for it, that isn't transphobic.
I think I agree. But again, I'm not specifically talking about you or me, because I think we feel kind of similarly about this in when it comes to who we're attracted to. But I think that, again, there are a lot of people who they would answer the same way. And again, I'm not accusing you of this, because I'm also not accusing myself of this.
Right? Yeah, I know you're not.
I do think this is a real
me.
phenomenon, right? That people are upset that they feel this attraction, that people are watching this kind of porn and they feel embarrassed they've watched this kind of porn. And I want these people to know that there's nothing wrong with them. They're not, and it doesn't make them like I don't think it makes them gay either. Whatever that sexuality identifier is. I don't think that I think that it's okay, and you're still, like, straight people are attracted to femininity, whether it's cis women or trans women. It's both of these things are going to exist.
I'm just going to dial it back though,
Vital?
but you've kind of made the point that outside factors are, besides that statement, are what make the person transphobic, and not them saying that they wouldn't date a trans woman.
Outside factors.
Well, I mean, the background context behind the statement would make them transphobic, not the statement itself.
Potentially. Well, I would say that the way that they view what that means about the trans person and themselves is the thing that might be rooted in a transphobic understanding of these things.
But I gave you context to why I would make that statement, and you said it wasn't transphobic. So, like, it's the context that does it, not the actual statement.
It could be either. I think it could be both, or I mean, in some cases, it could be one or the other, I guess.
I don't think it's adequate just using the statement as transphobic. Like,
I never said. I think I've been very explicit this entire time.
Right?
I think I've been very explicit this entire time that, like, that some of these ideals and ideas and values might be rooted in transphobic understandings of these things, rather than accusing individuals of being transphobic, which I don't think is as useful a way to engage with the topic in the first place. So I'm not here to condemn anyone for like being transphobic. But I think people have misunderstandings about what trans people, what it means to be transgender, what it means to be attracted to transgender people. And I think that a lot of these misunderstandings manifest in transphobia and are maybe even transphobic by nature.
All right, I'm getting IT in my ear. We got this clip ready. I'm going to go ahead and send it through. If you're ready, IT in the back, play the clip.
A lot of cis people feel like trans people are lying if they're not disclosing their trans status. This is a really big problem that we have, because it really implies that if you're lying about being trans, it's like you're lying, or like if you're lying about if you're not disclosing, doesn't mean that you're lying. But if you're not lying about anything, there's nothing. This is just like, hey, I'm trans. Like, it's just a little part of your identity. And I think that a lot of people in society who think that it's lying is because it's more, I think, geared towards trans women. If I'm completely honest, trans women do get a lot more attention in the media, which is fine, whatever. So I feel like a lot of the hate can go towards them, which sucks. But I feel like somebody goes on a date with a trans woman and it's a cis guy. So a cis guy and a trans woman are they're on a date, and she doesn't tell him that she's trans, and then he finds out later and he fucking flips out and like screams and leaves. And unfortunately, a lot of the times there's a lot of violence that happens, and it's very hard to talk about, honestly. Not something I would like to talk about right now. But the man feels like the woman is lying, and because she didn't tell him that she's a trans woman. And this is the part that maybe some people don't agree with, but I absolutely don't feel like she was lying, because it's not. I don't know how to explain it in simple terms, because she's not lying. She's literally, it's not like, oh, I don't tell you something, it doesn't mean I'm lying. Like, I'm withholding information. You're not withholding any information. This is just a part of your life that is irrelevant.
And thank you for that clip. It kind of leads into our next question, lying, being transparent. And our next question, I'd like that queued up, IT, if we can. What does it mean to be transparent on dating sites? So I think, Ryan, you're, if you don't mind answering the question first, what does it mean to be transparent on dating sites? And if you'd like to attack in anything, or, a reaction to what you saw, or to bring that together, feel free.
Yeah, I think it was interesting what he was saying about like whether or not it's lying to withhold certain information. I would say that lying is probably the wrong word for what we're describing here. In terms of at least in terms of the trans, I think we're moving into a bit broader context about transparency in dating. But I think there is a difference between like telling a lie and withholding information. And I think that it can probably feel like being lied to and being misled to a lot of people. But I don't think that necessarily even means that it was a lie. I think that if you do, I don't think there's many people who are interested in going on dates with people and not disclosing this any like before like they get into a sexual interaction, for just because like where we're at as a society, and because like a lot of people just don't like often most of the time like gender presentation aligns with biological sex. That's just a fact most of the time, right? But I think it's important to make room for the fact that some people don't align in that way, and that's valid, and that their experiences I'm not sure exactly how to tie that specifically into the broader version of it, which is like just being transparent about like, I don't know, maybe what your job is, how much money you make, how attractive you are, because, Photoshop, and various other things that can, and just photo angles, like being really good at taking photos can really change the perception of someone, or that someone might have of you when they're agreeing to like go on a date with you. All of these would definitely fall under withholding information, or even some of those might be more like quote unquote misleading than I would say that just not disclosing initially that you're trans.
Excellent. Vital, same question, or your thoughts in response
I
to
think
that?
it's being open about who you are. Like you're not hiding anything. Like, of course, like no one's going to be entirely transparent when they're dating, meeting people the first time. They're usually going to highlight what is what is attractive, what's appealing, and kind of like not necessarily dismiss, but not disclose some of the skeletons in the closet. And the area with the clip that you're referring to here is that the key concept of it is that no matter what you're hiding, someone's going to find out eventually if you're realistically pursuing them. So it is kind of a form of lying by there is such thing called lying by omission, that someone might act differently if certain info isn't given to them. And like you see it a lot with like medical this like whatever you like have like a form showing the risks of a procedure. If you omit some of them, it would be considered a lie under the law, and they didn't have the info to make a fully autonomous decision. So that's kind of where lying by omission plays a role here. But in this case, like it's okay to like deceive, I think, on dating apps, as long as you're aware that the truth will come out eventually. It will come out, and there will be consequences if people feel cheated.
Yeah, so dating apps and transparency. Ryan, how transparent do people need to be on their dating apps? Is it okay to Photoshop? Is it like for I mean, how do you think people should portray themselves in transparency?
I think that it is probably more like people are probably more successful if they have like authentic seeming pictures, at least first of all, like like people generally.
Sorry, I got IT cut in my ear. They said they got a clip. Okay. Can we put that down? Ryan's making a point here.
I think I might have lost it. Do you remember what I was just saying? I'm crazy.
If you don't remember, bring the clip back up as Ryan gathers his thoughts.
Yeah, we can watch the clip. Is a clip or just a picture?
Come on, IT, press play. Jesus, come on.
I think it might just be the picture.
What's going on here?
It's just an example, I guess, of filters, makeup, and Photoshop or something.
Yes. Okay. So
sure.
Transparency. Is it fair to do what this woman does? And can men do this? I mean, is that being transparent or is that lying?
I think it's deceptive, but I think it's fair game. I think it's fair game because like I see women doing it. I see some men doing it. For example, some of the dating coaches we see, They'll have their face photoshopped, like the jaw will be sharper, the hairline will be a bit lower. They'll show themselves. They might even like green screen a background to make it seem like they do more interesting things and around more important people. So I think it's fair game. It's just when you're out in person, the truth is gonna happen. Like if they show up and they see that you're balding and you're ugly, you might be fat or whatever, they're gonna be like, no, and just leave. So as long as you can accept the consequences of being deceptive, it's fair game.
I think I agree with most of what you said there, and I would maybe just add on, like, or maybe kind of pivot to like what that image is showing specifically, and how it ties back to the broader conversation. Like, first of all, I think it's like really common. Like most women wear makeup, right? I mean, I think a lot of women look notably different when they're not wearing makeup. I don't think necessarily better or worse, but definitely different. And I don't think that most people would consider it deceptive for someone to wear a face of makeup. I think people generally almost expect that of women. Women definitely feel like that's expected of them. And I think that's so common that even if I would say that, like, definitionally, I might identify it as deceptive. I don't know that it feels like the word deception here comes with more vitriol than I would really assign to what's really happening.
No, it's funny you bring up makeup though. Oh, you want to continue?
No, yeah, I mean that's right. Yeah.
It's funny you bring up makeup though, because I do look when someone has a thicker. There's layers to it. No pun intended. Actually, pun intended. Fuck it. There's layers to it. Like if you have someone that has a full, like, it looks like their face is painted on, every contour is good, versus someone that might have a light base of foundation. That's a big difference there. And like and eventually the truth will come out. Like let's say that you sleep together, the next morning, like the makeup's off, or like before they go to bed, they wipe it all off. You're gonna find out. It's just if the guy leaves afterwards, she can't cry that the dude was shallow or anything, because like he got something different than what was advertised to him.
Sure, and I think I agree with that as well. And I would also add though that I think a lot of men might feel deceived if they, like, after the fact, even if they didn't like see that woman like take off her makeup in the morning or whatever, if they like saw her later without makeup on and they were like, wow, this is not who I thought I hooked up with. I think a lot of men might be like really upset about that. And I don't know if I don't know if that's justified or not, but I think it's interesting that phenomenon exists.
Sorry, I'll cut you off there, Radical
go for it.
Yeah,
we got a comment pulled up here. Makeup is deceptive on the grounds it lies about the genetic traits you're advertising that you'll be passing on if we reproduce. Strong statement there from Jet. Thank you for being in chat, Jet. Response on that, Vital, I'll start with you, or if you want to respond, don't respond.
Yeah. I think that's like kind of the root of it. More like generally attractive features for people. Of course, there's going to be like slight variations, or there's going to be variations of what someone finds attractive. But yeah, it's going to make certain features look better. You're going to hide blemishes. Like you're going to make your cheeks a little like rosier to signify, and like your lips like a little bit more full of life, with like different shades and colors. I think that's a pretty reasonable take, and that's a part of it. Of course, there's some people that just like the art style of putting on makeup and they want to make themselves feel a little better. But still, a guy doesn't really like, honestly, like people don't have enough time to think about what everyone else is feeling inside of their head to make a decision. So
sure. To that comment, that on the grounds it lies about the genetic traits you're advertising, I think this presupposes a lot of a necessity that like dating is inherently just about like finding someone to reproduce with, and I don't think for that in many cases I just don't think that's what people are immediately looking for. I think in a lot of like the red pill communities and stuff here, like people are talking about like how to using game to meet women and hook up with women and stuff, and I don't think they're just looking to hook up with women to form a family and make a bunch of babies with. I think part of what they want to do is meet women and have sex and have fun together. And I don't think that there's anything like if the concern is that this is a lie about the genetic traits you're advertising there, well, if you're going to get to the point where you are going to have that person pass on their genetic traits, you're probably going to see them without makeup before that. And if you don't, well, you probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
You probably should try not to reproduce with them if you haven't even like been in a situation with them where they've taken their makeup off. Like
well, I think you're applying a logical solution there to an issue if that's if they view the world that way. I just think that a lot of sexual attraction like inherently is off of genetic traits there. So like it's like as a proxy for like genetic features is the sexual attractive features. It's kind of like what most people are attracted to is kind of a proxy for like genetic features.
Maybe
you don't consciously think that, oh, if she had my kid, it would be uglier than if I had a kid with the other chick like that. I don't think that consciously goes into people's mind when they're hooking up. It just kind of how it works out.
But I guess I mean if we're when responding at least to that specific comment, like it's talking about like what you'll be passing on again if you reproduce. Like and like whether or not that what you're attracted to when you see someone who's wearing makeup is a thing that you are interested in, like making sure that it's passed on to your children. There's no guarantee that any of those specific traits are going to be passed on to your children anyway. And frankly, you should love those children regardless of whether or not they have those genetic traits that you're expecting that partner to pass on. But again, I fundamentally I don't think that this is like in practicality what people are concerned with when they're
that's why I said potentially the root, like explicitly would be like she's more attractive when she has the makeup on, but like when she takes it off she's ugly. Like that's deceiving.
How
Well,
about
like
this?
the root of it might be like, oh, she's got more attractive features that are going to be more attractive in my offspring. That could be like the root. But like it's a possible
Evo Psych, like
it's an Evo. And I have critiques to Evo Psych because it's applying meaning to things how they tend to change, like retroactively. Which and what you got, Provo?
I got IT in my ear, and it's going to be a hot question. This is the last question. We might have a couple of questions from the audience in the last segment, but IT, go ahead, run the clip, please. Is it possible to be transracial? And here's another clip. Is this a picture or clip, IT?
I understand that people will obviously they're going to react, but it's the fact that you say you identify as black.
I don't want to fight the black people. I do it for myself. It is not a media attention. I'm just talk with them who want to talk with me because I'm really proud that this medicine works for me so well, and I can feel in myself that I'm changing to a black woman. I know that I'm a black woman, but I have to say I have to learn more about all these cultures, and that's the reason why I'm going to be in January. I want to go to Africa to learn more about the cultures to avoid misunderstanding.
With that, I think we're going to start. Who started last time? Was it Ryan? We're going to go to Vital this time?
Yeah.
So to start,
I think that. I think the
ahead.
idea of transracial is like preposterous because like saying that she wants to find what culture is she trying to become? Is she trying to become inner city Chicago? Is she trying to become a Nigerian? Is she trying to become Kenyan? Like there's so many cultures that would be considered black or of a race. It depends on how narrow the category you're going for, and you'll find that people that fit a racial category aren't the same. So what you're trying to become, like you just become a caricature of that race because it's a broad category in the end. That's just kind of how I see that.
Excellent. Thank you for that response. And same question to you, Radical.
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of what Caduceus said again. I know maybe this isn't super contentious between us in a lot of ways, but I think this is a good opportunity to really explore like what is race in the first place. I mean, despite 17 U.S. states banning critical race theory to some degree or another, race in reality is something that is imposed on people based on phenotypical traits. So people are categorized as Black or white or, you know, not one or the other. And then historically, the way they were treated was based on that categorization. So like whiteness, for example, is a property that allowed people access to certain buildings, certain schools, certain living situations. And Blackness was the thing that barred them from those specific things. And I think this maybe speaks to why a lot of people might be upset to see someone trying to embrace that or trying to lean into like being Black. I think in a world where we didn't have the same, where like race wasn't like if race was just skin color, which I don't think it is. If race were just skin color and it had and there was none of this other baggage to it, I don't think stuff like this would be much of a problem. And I can also see a world to bring it back again. I can also see a world where if gender differences and biological sex differences were not something that people were like that women, you know, were second-class citizens for until 100 years ago, and even still to many degrees, although there's plenty of disagreement about that, I'm sure. I think that a lot of animosity towards trans people manifests from similar frustrations. So I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with somebody like, you know, changing their skin color. I think some people do it to appear more white across the globe. Although I think the reasons, again, that they believe they should do that are frankly rooted in white supremacy.
Let me drive. Sorry to cut you off. You sense there's agreement. Let me drive the question even a little bit narrower.
Mm-hmm.
What if you identify? You take a DNA test and you have 1% Native American, and you all of a sudden start racially identifying as a Native American? Is that okay? You know what I mean? Or can you be transracial in those regards? Is there a certain, like, can you be Elizabeth Warren to an extent? Is there this idea you can be a little bit of something? And, or if so, what are your thoughts on that?
Do you want to go first? I do have thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I got more thoughts on the race idea though. I think it's like a combo of like the phenotypical. It's race is kind of like a heuristic. How I see it, like it's a heuristic for the social issues that come with the skin tone as well as the phenotypical side of it. So if you look at a medical perspective, certain races are at higher risk of certain conditions than others, and like whether that's like due to bias leading to that reference range being different or like certain beliefs, whether it's from biological or social, that's not the issue. I think that will eventually become obsolete as genetic sequencing will become more standard, because I think they said once it reaches $1,000 in cost for genetic sequencing for an individual, it will be cheaper to sequence everyone versus having people get certain diseases down the road. So I think we're going to have tools better than that heuristic down the road, but I don't think it's something to ignore entirely. But I think race is something just to kind of treat it for what it is. It's like using a mallet instead of like a fine chiseling tool to assess like someone's background. I do think that there's like in-group biases that lead some races maybe like closer together, just culturally, naturally. And there's also like certain, like there's also, it can help someone in some areas, hurt someone in others. It's not going to be exactly fair every single time. But that's just kind of how the world is, and what you got to adapt with.
So before I go into it, I do want to say Rini in the chat has brought up a really good point that transracialism specifically is a term that has for a very long time been used to identify children who are adopted into families that don't, a child of one race who's been adopted into the family of another. And so that alone, or that like kind of makes this conversation probably especially frustrating for people who might be in those families or like know people in those families. But to what you were saying, I think that describing race for what it is, I agree with that, and I think that's kind of what I'm getting at, because I think that like what like when you talked about like some of those things emerging from like bias or whatever, or maybe like biological, there are definitely like people are different, but the racial categorization of people is not one that lines up with like biology. In fact, like nowadays we do have a lot of genetic sequencing, and the way that we categorize people in a way that is, I mean, it's a complete paradigm shift from what race has been used as. But there's something called Klein's, which is a much better parallel to what race was maybe attempting to get at for a long time. Although it definitely doesn't come with the same like characteristics that you might like personality traits that you might a lot of people might historically associate with race because of racism or racialism, as it's often called. I think that to the point about the disparities that we see, I think a lot of that is like when we categorize people as like a black American, this person statistically probably has their family, their lineage has been in a frankly a disparate position in terms of what they've had access to, in terms of where they've been allowed to live, in terms of how that housing has been for them, how the education system has treated them, and how the police have treated them, and how hospitals have treated them, and all of these things. I think that in some ways, race is in fact like the imposition of race is the disparity, or like race is the disparity. And so which is why when we have things like people get so outraged about things like affirmative action now, where we talk about race being a factor in deciding like where someone should be included or get access to school and stuff. And this is because it makes sense from this perspective if you understand race as something that was historically imposed on people. But I'm sorry. To pull it way back to the transracialism, people identifying as transracial and changing their quote unquote race. I think that if someone quote unquote passes, I guess, as a black person, if they are recognized as black and treated as black, whatever that means to the people around them, then in that context, they are black. And I don't know what it would mean to say they're not.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And we're going to our last statements, last comments of the portion of the show. So Vital, I'll give you maybe like about 5 minutes, and then Ryan, you as well. So if you want to respond to that, or if you'd like just your overall.
Yeah, we get like a little recap of what we got on. Okay, yeah. Along this stream, I think the general idea of how Ryan and I see I don't think like either of us view people that make certain choices in a bad light. We do have disagreements on like how people should act upon it. I look at a lot of disparities and way people see others. I kind of see that as that's just how people are going to see things, and you should adapt accordingly and just maximize your life to the fullest with what you got. There are thousands of other debates that can come out of this, like the like just a couple examples about race. There were several that could have spawned from that last comment from Ryan with race. That idea of like trans including non-binary, other areas, but I'm glad that we kept it within the questions that we have there. Would it be transphobic if you say you don't want to date a trans person? I still think no, but someone that is transphobic probably could make that statement with other context. But I don't think that someone saying that, you can't diagnose them as a transphobe from that. And additionally, I think it's good to be transparent on dating apps or dating in general, because the truth will eventually come out. And a part of it is being able to communicate well about what you want out of interactions, whether it be business, relationships, like just whatever, like when you're ordering, just every facet of your life. Be a better communicator, express what you want from other people, and respond to other people's requests adequately. And then we can live our lives with a lot less confusion there. So I don't really know what else to say.
I love that. Hey, great statement. Again, appreciate those last comments. And if you're more than willing, after, we're going to answer one or two questions from chat. But before we do that, Ryan, your last statements on kind of everything and anything in response to that, the floor is yours.
I think I largely agreed with what Caduceus was saying just now. When it comes to like the labeling people as transphobe or not, or someone saying the claim, when someone feels the need to like announce that, you know, I'm not attracted to trans people or something like this, I think that usually again that probably comes from like a misunderstanding of what trans people are. But I think it also from the perspective of the trans people who see these messages and are just being like kind of shouted out into the ether, like people are like, I don't want to date you because you're trans. I think that these people deal with this kind of rejection enough, and I understand why they would feel like someone posting something like that is somewhat aggressing on them, you know, in a sense, and they feel bad. They feel probably like shit when they see that constantly. And I wanted to read this last quote from the APA that the APA paragraph that I read earlier in my like opening statement. I think that I'm just gonna read the sentence. So the ways that transgender people are talked about in popular culture, academia, and science are constantly changing, particularly as individuals' awareness, knowledge, and openness about transgender people and their experiences grow. And so what I'm here to ask people who might be kind of closed-minded about what, and I don't think Caduceus is really that closed-minded to these topics. In fact, I think he's kind of the opposite. He's pretty open about these ideas. But I think that I think people should be more open and curious about these people's experiences. I think that these people are not going away, despite the GOP's attempts to force them back into the closet. And I think that that's okay. And I think that the reality is that these people have particular struggles that are exacerbated by the rejection and fear and misunderstandings, and that we should be pushing towards people being more curious and more open to hearing about these people's experiences, understanding why they feel the way they do, understanding they're not delusional. Someone mentioned body dysmorphia in the comments. Body dysmorphia is a condition where you look in the mirror and you actually don't see what should be reflected. Like you're actually you're imagining a different view of yourself. Like you literally can't see the reality for what it is, and that's where the distress from that comes from. However, with gender dysphoria, the distress comes from full recognition that your body is what it is. You look in the mirror, you see exactly what's there, and you fully comprehend it, and that's where the distress comes from a full and complete and honest understanding of it. You're not delusional. In fact, maybe if you were delusional, it might be a little bit easier. But I think I'm happy to leave it at that for now.
Awesome. Thank you both.
And like I said, several debate topics within both of our closing statements, like the idea about like whether like the current treatment modalities could adequately treat gender dysphoria. That's a whole other discussion. What's the range of transgenderism, and also like how to be transparent in certain areas. So if other people want to pick up on the conversation, I think it's a way that people can grow and learn.
Yeah, thank you both for just sharing your time and your thoughts. And if you don't mind, we're gonna have a question. IT, you there? Pull up a question, please. It's dishonest. Why would you need to withhold the information if it doesn't change anything? I don't know if this is a question.
I think it's just a comment.
Is this a comment? Can we IT? What the fuck? Can we get a good question? Like it's been. What the hell is this shit? There were so many good questions. Pull up a good comment. What is the difference between being transracial and transgender? Is race, this is two questions, is race more superficial than gender? So quick, and with just a quick answers, if you can, we'll leave this up for you, Caduceus, to answer, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, I think it plays in my answer of race being like a hammer tool of heuristics to kind of like gauge someone's background. So if someone's background is how they were growing up, the culture that they were in, or whatever, you can't really change that. You are who you are. You are kind of your background. It's kind of a play on your genetics combined with your it's like your genetics combined with like the culture you grew up in as a heuristic, so someone can kind of gauge what issues you're going through, sometimes negatively what behaviors you might perceive they have, like when you have people that, because that just happens though. There's going to be there's going to be biases in favor and against people in all areas, and that just kind of happens. So I don't think you could really change that. Like there's albino black people that are still black because like they grew up in that culture. They still were treated similar. They had the facial features or whatever. So I think it's hard to really understand what another race is to the point where you change, where you can actually be adequate. And also like someone from Chicago that's black is a lot different than someone from Nigeria that's black. So like it's really hard to assess on the change. But about the transgenderism, I'd say that there's a lot more commonality between like women broad strokes instead of than of the sexes broad stroke or the genders broad stroke instead of with races. That's kind of how I see it.
With you, Radical, if you don't mind, again, I'd like to get some more questions asked. Again, we try to shoot for maybe a shorter show, but if you don't mind trying to answer this question and briefly, if possible, and then we'll blow up another question. And be ready, IT, with something better.
I will first of all say I think a lot of the ways you were describing race as a heuristic for background, I feel like almost all the things you said right there, while I agree with them, I think also could be applied to gender expression in terms of like what kinds of experiences people might have, and what their lived experiences and what they're presenting. Although I think maybe what they're presenting out into the world, this might be where we see more distinction between like what it means to be a certain race or what it means to be a certain gender, because again, historically, race is not something that is really, I mean, depending on what race you were categorized as, it's not something that's really so much about your self-identity, rather how the people around you treat you based on their perception of you being a particular race. Is it more superficial than gender? I think both have
IT.
I'm sorry,
we're getting cut off. This IT, we got a new IT problem.
I screenshotted the comment. We're good. I'm looking at it right here.
Okay.
Is race? I think race is probably more superficial than I don't know. I think I don't know how to answer that question, but I do think that gender has there's gender identity. There's like an internal experience of gender that seems to be something that's more intrinsic to people, which is why gender dysphoria seems to manifest as I understand it. And I don't think that exists for race, at least not. I haven't seen very much evidence for it. There's a few like case studies, like the clip we watched in Rachel Dolezal, but I don't know that outside of the way that a quote unquote race has been treated historically, I don't know that there's an inherent identity that aligns with like a racial identity, while gender again seems to be something that is deeply personal to people. And although where, again, to tie it back, where they are related is that both the way the outside world might interact with someone based on perceiving them as a specific gender or race, both of those involve like imposition of things. And I think that's interesting too.
Yeah. Well, the outside person's perspective,
I
I just want to play off of this, but the outside person's perspective is huge on that. How you're perceived,
Absolutely.
like that's a part of the cultural thing. I would argue that in the case for both transracials and transgenders, like I don't really see anyone. They're going to be viewed as their own category after a transition. Usually, they're going to be viewed as their own category, depending on what kind of the expectations the populace at large has on that race or that gender. So I do see some of the parallels you're having, but that's like a whole other debate, like whether someone can transition or not, like fully and be like embraced.
Excellent.
Yeah, I agree. That's a very different debate. I don't know.
Next question. Honest question here. I hope it is. Why do you think men should date females with a stick? Do you really think that's attractive to heterosexual males? That's the best IT could do. I don't know if people aren't asking quite like. So to who's going to answer this first? How
I think
about
it's Ryan's turn.
Ryan?
First.
So what I'll say to this, I think one of the things that's really interesting about the way that trans issues are discussed, I think what it brings to light is that even terms that we might take for granted, like heterosexuality, straight, or gay, or homosexuality, that these in and of themselves are spectrums, and they mean different things to different people. But generally, when someone identifies as straight, which many people who are attracted to women who have penises, the thing that they're signifying that they're attracted to is generally in the presentation. I mean, very often, maybe even most of the time, I agree that actually almost definitely most of the time that includes sex traits, like biological sex traits, and but I don't think that that attraction to gender, I don't think that's like negated, and I don't think that like a person who identifies as straight who might be attracted to a trans woman, I don't think that makes them like not straight, because when we say they're not straight, we're saying like, oh well, you're attracted to I mean, essentially we're saying that it feels like we're kind of limiting it to like straight or gay. Maybe you might argue that they're bi to some degree, and many of them might be, but even that, it suggests that they're also attracted to like men who are masculine, who have who present themselves as masculine and identify themselves in that way. And I don't think that's just not the case for many of these people. And especially to bring it back to like the dating, like the people.
Not to cut you off a shorter time. We got more questions.
Yeah,
There's a lot of people who have questions
I'm
for
not
you
gonna
guys.
leave it
We got to go chat here. We're excited. Caduceus, the same question to you.
Yeah, same question. I don't tell men like who they should date. I just assert that most men do not want a female with a penis. It's just most men typically don't want that, and that's just how I see it. Like if someone wants to do that, that's their issue. I'm not gonna. I don't have time to really call guys gay or straight or whatever, or label them, because there's a lot going on in my life. The point, or I don't care too much about what other people do in their spare time behind closed doors, as long as like both people are consenting, and that's like really the only thing that matters to me.
Great answers from both of our panel. We love this. Great energy, both. Hey, IT, pull up. Holy shit! Look at this question. Jeez. Sorry, I'll read this to you. What are the debaters' thoughts on the notion we have a term for people unattracted to trans people and treating it like a significant issue to tackle, but we don't have a term for people who aren't attracted to ugly people or short people? I don't know how we're just going to keep. This is an interesting question.
I got a quick answer to it.
Can we pull? How do you pull the other thing back up so these people can read it? And you're just gonna fucking rotate it, IT, so these people know. And this is gonna go to who first?
I'll take it first there.
Caduceus.
Yeah, my thoughts on that is that I don't care if there's a term for it. I think dating is one of the areas where you should be the most discriminatory. Like I think you should discriminate in a lot of your social interaction, because you got to have standards for what you're going to tolerate, and you're going to have expectations that people need to follow. I think a lot of people have expectations. Men have expectations of what they expect out of a sexual partner, whether they're gay, straight, or whatever. I don't think that there should be a term, but there being a term, I think should be. I think it's irrelevant, because I don't really care if I get shamed for what I'm attracted to. Like if someone wants to shame where I put my penis, they better be offering me something better.
And same question to you, Coder.
I have the question on my other screen here. So the debaters' thoughts that we have a term for people. I think what the term they're referring to, I believe, is transphobia. But I don't think that that's really what, like, I don't think transphobia is limited to this like whether people saying that they're not attracted to trans people. In fact, I think that was kind of the initial question of the debate, and I think even I throughout this debate have reasserted that I think that there are reasons that might be rooted in transphobia that someone might feel that way, but it's not necessarily. I wouldn't characterize someone who's unattracted to like trans women, for example, because they have penises, like as a transphobe or whatever. And so I think that the question is kind of leading from that like false premise that anyone here has made that claim. And I think that transphobia is much broader than just like than just this attraction question. And I really want to hammer this home. So like I think it's really important to remember that the ways that transgender people are talked about in popular culture, academia, and science are constantly changing, particularly as individuals' awareness, knowledge, and openness about transgender people and their experiences grow. And again, what I invite people to do is reconsider your preconceptions about these topics, because probably you have misconceptions. Probably I have misconceptions. And it is important. I think learning is radical. That's why I call myself a radical coder, because I fucking love learning. I think it's cool as fuck. And I think more people should be excited about learning. And this is just one of many topics that learning about it not only improves your life and your understanding of the people around you, but also improves their lives.
Great answers. Loved both of those. Man, I didn't. Next, is this a question? This is get this out of here,
comment.
IT. What the fuck? Oh, there's a question. Yale study found transgender people are 6 times more likely to attempt suicide, 6 times more likely to have mental health issues. Isn't transgender phobias just being scared of mentally ill people? So you just gotta guess. Pick a fucking question where it's just one thing, so we have to rotate it. But yeah, just keep it there. Go radical.
Yeah, just so there definitely is. I mean, there's an elephant in the room. Like I think all of us have heard the fact that transgender people have a unfortunately high suicide rate, right? And I think that this and I first of all, I think it's important to remember it's not just that they have a high suicide rate, but they have a high rate of depression and living lives that are very difficult because of the circumstances they find themselves in. And I think that from the data that I've seen, it seems very clear, and it also just intuitively seems very clear that when the people around you shame you for it and refuse to accept your identity and treat you like there's something wrong with you, that treats you like you're mentally ill for identifying in a different way. I do think gender dysphoria itself is a mental illness, but I don't think identifying as a gender. I think there are trans people who don't have gender dysphoria, but I definitely think that if we the way that Sweet Orange Productions here has talked about this problem is intentionally or not, it exemplifies some of the reasons that these rates are where they are, and this a move towards being more open-minded and listening to these people's struggles, and trying to understand why they feel the way they do and what exactly they're feeling and what they're asking of people around them, which is generally much more reasonable than is characterized. Then I think that we will with time see those rates drop, and I think that is a fucking awesome thing. So I want to push more for that.
Well, I'm gonna have a take on this. I do agree that the mental illness is the dysphoria. I think this is a whole other debate again, but people are going to be skeptical if they transition, whether that's adequately treating their dysphoria, like whether the treatment modality is sufficient for treating that dysphoria. You say that I'm sure several trans people will say that what their treatments are enough, and that's great for them, but people are going to be skeptical, and if that makes them transphobic, I think that's reasonable to have that skepticism. I think that's a reasonable skepticism there.
If I can just follow up on that a little bit.
Yeah, please do.
I think something that is also important to remember is that a lot of times when people like imagine like a transgender person's experience, they're generally imagining someone who's seeking out like surgeries and things like this. But it seems like the vast majority of people who identify as trans and although many of these cases might be from lack of access to that kind of healthcare, but many of them are simply find relief from their gender dysphoria from social transitioning, from wearing clothes that traditionally don't align with their gender identity, from using pronouns and names and like changing their voice and presentation again to things that don't traditionally align with their gender identity. And the fact that people are treated so badly for doing that, there is no other way to describe what's happening there mostly than transphobia. And it is no surprise that someone who is experiencing those things is going to have like mental health issues.
Nobody asked the question.
being
He's still
treated
talking.
badly, you know.
What was that? But does that align with the original point though? He was asking like being like, if you were concerned about a mental illness, like that skepticism that they haven't, like the treatment that what they've done to transition hasn't been adequate. Like I think that's a reasonable skepticism that might be considered transphobic. Now you're talking about like horrible things that these trans people experience, which people would probably unanimously would say is transphobic.
I don't think I'm just talking about like horrific situations where I think that there's a lot of like, this is a word that might trigger a lot of people, but it's an academic term. It's a very real thing. Microaggressions are things that exist. In fact, frankly, this debate in and of itself, it's very difficult to have without engaging in some degree of like microaggression. These people are our debate topic, right? This category of human beings is what we're here, what we've presented this at least as a debate about. And that.
But my take on that's a different debate, and my take on that one, just to be short, is that they're going to happen, and like they're just going to happen, and how you adjust is how you adjust. Like it's.
Yeah, but we should recognize that they are going to happen, but we should also recognize that the impact of those things happening is going to be different to people who don't have to.
Yeah, but I say it would be, but I say it's like kind of insincere to say that you're going to account for all of those, because they're just going to like it's going to happen, and the other person might have a lot going on in their life to where they're not going to acknowledge every microaggression, and the other person, like, it might shatter their day, and someone else just really might not have the amount of cognition focused on that. They might not be thinking about it enough for that being the focus of their day. Like even if they made someone feel really terrible.
So when I say microaggression, I don't necessarily mean that like a microaggression is something. I think specifically a microaggression is something that and I don't have a definition right here, so I'm not going to try.
No, I know examples of it though.
But what I'm saying is that like whether or not it like that individual thing like ruins someone's day, it's more so that it's just another it's death by a thousand cuts kind of thing. Like it's like
here's the thing of it though. If I'm in a situation where I'm constantly giving them little paper cuts, I probably would put myself in situations where I'm not doing that, which would lead to me like separating from that type of person. Well, sure, but I think that we both agree that the reality is that these are conversations that are going to be had. And I think that it's reasonable to acknowledge that whether or not they're going to be had, and I think they should be had. I'm here for a reason. I want to have these conversations. I think that I bring a perspective to the table that is helpful. I could be wrong about that. I certainly don't speak for trans people, to be 100% clear. But I think that I think it's important to recognize that the way that it's going to impact these people and be conscious of that as we engage with them. And that's, I'm certainly not accusing you of not doing that. I'm just saying the easy way, like a lot of people have a lot of like people are going to find the pathway of least resistance typically towards achieving a goal. If the goal is to not do harm, non-maleficence here with the trans people, and a lot of what they do like subconsciously is damaging to them, like they're gonna try to avoid that social interaction where they're actively hurting people, even if it's subconscious. And so like the outcome might not be as like they might have good intentions, but the outcome is bad still if you have people separating themselves into their own ponds.
Well, sure that the intent.
Hate to cut you
largely-
guys off. With that, we got a lineup of more questions, and I know your time might be short, both of you. So I don't know how much more time you have.
I can keep
But
up with it.
are you open for one more question?
We do one more. Yeah.
One
Can
more.
I first add to that? I
Yeah,
agree
go-
with you. I agree with what you were saying
Finish
about
your
intent.
statements, and then
Yeah.
we'll go to one more question.
I think right now that I mentioned this a couple times throughout this debate, but right now the GOP or the conservative party in this country are pushing a lot of legislation that not only makes it more difficult for these people to express themselves socially, but definitely makes it near impossible for a lot of them to seek medical care. And I think there is a case to be made that a lot of this legislation comes from a belief that they're doing something to help these people. I don't think these people are like evil in like they don't believe that they're like making these people's lives so much worse. But in practice, that's absolutely what's going to happen. And that frankly that scares me and concerns me because I don't want to see those rates that were mentioned earlier increase. And I think that these laws that are being passed and these moves that the Republican Party is currently making are going to result in those rates increasing, and I think that is going to be devastating.
Excellent, and thank you for that statement. Here's our question. Thank you, ITQ. Question: would you continue to date someone if you learned they were trans? So this is the question. Great question, IT. It's really easy to read. Let's go to who wants this one first. I'll just open it up.
I think I'll go first. Yeah.
All right.
The answer is no, because they like the category I have listed. Like I mentioned earlier, like what I expect out of a woman that I'm dating. I honestly like if I'm the point where I didn't know to that point, I would like. I'd be surprised if that scenario ever existed. But which would mean that I guess what they're doing, their treatments were pretty good there. Yeah, I don't see that scenario happening, but the answer would still be no.
Yeah, short answer there. Easy. And to you, Radical Coder?
I'm not sure. And I think that maybe this goes back to the initial thing that we kind of set on the back burner, but like people will come out as like non-binary throughout their lives, and I think that's good and healthy, and that would them embracing that and living that truth for them would be like they're coming out with that would involve me like learning that they were trans technically, and that's what whether or not that's like the implication that's being made with this question. I think that is what they're asking without realizing it, which is again why I think the language around this is so important, and being specific about what we're asking is so important, and understanding what these terms mean is so important. Because I mean, again, similarly, I don't think that I would be in that situation. Usually, frankly, if I'm dating someone, we've probably I've probably seen them naked at least once. I don't know. I'm not generally, I don't think I'm attracted to like penises. And I think that I probably would not date someone with a penis. But I don't know, maybe one day I'll meet someone who I would, but generally I don't. So I'll leave it there.
Great answer. And awesome. I know you guys have got other things planned. I appreciate, first of all, I just want to say thank you for sharing your time with me and everybody here. And if you guys can plug your channels one more time, I'll start with you, Ryan. Again, people can find you where?
So my YouTube channel is Radical Coder. You can find me, most of the internet that I'm around on is Radical Coder. I have been permanently banned on Twitter with no idea of why, although I think it was probably either Groypers or some other right-wing group that I bump heads with that mass flagged me. My YouTube channel is Radical Coder, and I have lots of debates about topics that are related to these. But I also will be publishing like educational content about programming, about these topics, and about just other ongoings in the world, because I think it's as I said before, learning is radical.
Awesome. And Caduceus, the Vital Message. How about yourself?
Yes. You could find me at the Vital Message. That's the name. I go by Caduceus on my shows. I do interviews where I interview guests. Kind of the idea in I'm in the part of the manosphere where we like to compare notes. What one person's solution might align well with you as a viewer, but the next time we have a show, their point of view might be more along what you want to do. I tell guys to treat the world like their laboratory, figure out what works with them, and if it doesn't work, throw that away and move on and try something else. Don't give up. One area of your life might be over, but there's a lot more opportunities, and I try to help guys figure out what's on the menu. Additionally, I have the Black Pill Bachelorette dating show, which is a lot of fun, a lot of entertainment, where we bring on a lot of different personalities to compete, find love, or try to finesse. So find me on the Vital Message, and I look forward to seeing you all there.
Amazing. You both have been just so generous with your time and just your conversation. Really appreciate it. And are either of you streaming later tonight or after this?
I am not.
No. And
Ryan is. Are you?
Ryan is?
I think I might. And I wanted to say, I know there were a lot of questions in the chat that I didn't really get to engage with, or a lot of people who, like Jet, saying that I didn't engage with their questions. I didn't intend to not engage with your question. So I think I might go live very shortly. So if anyone does want to come explain to me why I'm wrong about something, or ask me questions that you felt you didn't get a satisfying answer to, I recommend right now that you go subscribe to Radical Coder on YouTube, so that when I do click that go live button, you get a little notification and you can come in and tell me how you feel.
Awesome.
Yeah, if you don't mind if I shill one more thing, this would apply for both of us. If you're like, I think we both also have Discord servers. Our accounts, we are both members of the Thorpe Discord, and if you'd like to be a part of ours, you can DM us and I will send you the invite.
Awesome. Amazing stuff. You guys absolutely rocked it. Man, good. I wish we had more time together. There's good conversations. And if you guys, like I said, want to find more content, they told you where to go. We probably don't have outro music because IT hasn't really figured their shit yet. But it's kind of weird just to go off cold. I mean, what do you do? Just keep talking in the void till IT turns off the stream? Maybe. What do you do? Like, what is this whole thing? Haven't figured this part out, right? Provo, tell us your thoughts. Jesus. My thoughts don't fucking matter. These guys did great. I enjoyed listening to their opinions, and it's just fun. It's fun to see people just share their thoughts. I don't know my thoughts. Jesus Christ, what a tough question. Oh my gosh. It's like
you have a malevolent AI running your show. Like that's
like
2001 A Space Odyssey I'm sorry, Provo. I can't do that. I can't do that.
I care about your thoughts. All right. Well, my thoughts honestly are that we didn't get enough into transparency, and I really like just how much there's to go into that. And what does it mean to be transparent in dating? I like that quite a bit. And just my thoughts on general, I don't know. Both these guys are great. They make great content. It's just fun to be around creative people. So my thoughts are mostly just nice. I don't know, man. There's points where I agree and disagree with both of these fine young people. And, I think that's the best part is if I just agreed with them all the time, or even if I disagreed with them all the time, I don't know. Wouldn't be the same. Is this show still going? How do we know when it ends? Thoughts, head empty. That's what you have to be as a moderator.
I'm trying to go live on using Stream. I've never used StreamYard to go live. I don't know if that's is that how I would do this. I haven't streamed on YouTube really much except for through Streamlabs, but I don't have that open. So
Yes. So you could make a StreamYard account. You make a StreamYard account, and then you link it to your YouTube, which you've done before.
Oh, it says ready to go live. Oh, this go live.
And then you link it to your YouTube. Then you get a link. If you have the free version, you can have
Keep
6.
that question
but you
up,
have to have
IT. I'll answer it, even because he's
Yeah.
yelling it. Was it hectic being moderator, Provo? No, it was not hectic. The problem is the whole IT thing and the dysfunction of communicating in a world where everything's not seamless, doesn't work as well as it should. It should be run better. Should have had intro music that was cooler. Outro music we need something. But no, these gentlemen did a great job keeping it civil, and that's all you really can. Screw you, Provo IT. Respectfully, hey, no, you're right. I'm being a little harsh with you, IT. You did great. Now you're making me feel bad. Just kidding.
I think I'm live on YouTube right now.
Excellent. Radical Coder is live, everybody. And again, one of the things I want to give a shout out. Some of my thoughts are that the Vital Message has a really cool show. I think you might have talked about it, where people can actually pay to join it, and there's all kinds of features that are participatory, right?
I try to make it interactive where you can pay. You could back a supporter. We call it the pay to play immunity form, and you also could just have your comments. I don't force people to do it, but some people might like a contestant and want to see them make it to the final 3, and that's the way that they can guarantee it.
But it is beautiful content. It's original. It's something maybe I haven't seen it before, but it's really cool that you can actively participate as someone in the audience in some ways. And it's just a neat little thing you have there. So, and I don't know, hey, IT, pull up another question. Do something. Yeah, bro, tell us your thought and what you disagree with, please. So I think you can be transracial. I think you can be someone who is black, but you don't look black. You look white. You know what I mean? But your dad or mom might be black. I've met people like that, and so to me, and I'm like, oh, there's people who are black, but they look white. That's just kind of my experience. So,
like Logic.
Yeah, Logic.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes,
so I've met people who are white, but they're black because their biological mother is black.
Like Andrew Tate or guys like that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out.
So if that
how
makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense on the transracial question, but I do think people can looks like something. Like Elizabeth Warren doesn't look Native American, but I honestly believed her.
Oh, I actually wanted to touch. I know I'm streaming on my channel now, so they're going to hear this answer as well. But to the idea about like Elizabeth Warren and stuff, because I'm also like my grandpa on my mom's side is full Native American.
There you go.
And so I could argue that I'm like I have that large.
I'm about 6%.
Sure.
I can make an argument.
What I would
too.
say to that though is that what it means to be like to experience like life as like someone who's identified as like Native, and how that impacts people's lives. I don't think that has very much meaning to me, because I don't think any of those experiences have been very impactful in my life. So I don't think that me identifying with that would be very useful or
advantageous. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If anything, it might be like harmful to people who actually experience that reality.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. We've been ushered out of we're not relative anymore, but because Ryan streams up and it's going. IT's
I'm actually going to drop out of the studio. So love you guys.
I guess I'm just going to fade out soon or something.